So we
No
got
way.
churro waffles on our Grand Cayman day, whereas everyone else got them on Castaway Day. So I got to do double the Mickey churro waffle this time.
Oh my God. I mean, that if that's not a reason alone to pay for concierge, I don't know what I'm joking, but I love
They
Mickey
should put that
churro
on the
waffles.
website.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the DCL Duo podcast brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. As you can tell from my voice doing the show intro, it is Sam. I am solo hosting today. Brian is unable to join me for this recording, but that's okay because I'm not alone. As usual, I have a fantastic guest to introduce you all to. I'm super excited to introduce this audience to first-time Disney cruiser, Whitney. Welcome to the show, Whitney.
Thanks so much.
So lovely to have you. We're both wearing ears today. I'm super excited about that. You showed up perfectly ready for a recording about Disney Cruise Line wearing some really cute Bobble Bar ears. And I decided I needed to match you and put on my own ears. So I grabbed some DCL ears.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm also wearing a DCL Duo inaugural podcast cruise shirt, by the way. And for those of you who aren't signed up yet, there is still room on the second podcast cruise, which is on Adventures by Disney in summer of 2026. Just throwing it out there, still available. But anyway, I'm super excited to talk to you, Whitney. Before we chat about your first cruise on Disney Cruise Line, I know you have some Disney creds and you have some other cruise lines that you have been on. So why don't you tell us your Disney background and your cruising background before sailing on Disney?
Yeah, it sounds good. So I first, I think, kind of came to the mouse when I was about 12. We took a family trip to Disney World at that time. And then I really didn't kind of venture back in any meaningful way until after I got married. And then since I got married, that was about 12 years ago, we've been either to Disney World or Disneyland multiple times. We've been to Disneyland Paris as well, and always really enjoyed those. I'm kind of a type A planner person, and Disney trips really make that perfect.
Disney is great, especially World. Like you better be a type A planner if you want to go to Disney World and like figure it all out.
Yeah, exactly. And then also during the pandemic, we were bored at home like everyone else. And so started a project that was right when Disney Plus had come out. And we said, we want to watch every movie ever released by Walt Disney Pictures in chronological order.
Oh my God.
Well, and that's like, that.
Yeah. Wow, that's like there's a lot of stuff that the Walt
hundreds.
Disney, that Walt and Roy like did. Oh my God.
Yeah. So we're up to, started at the very beginning. So Snow White, we're all the way up now to 2001. So we've just watched The Princess Diaries again, but in chronological order. So,
oh my God.
So hopefully we'll get even further through. The challenge is, they put movies out at quite the cadence these days. So hard to stay on top of it.
Oh yeah. The last 20 years, probably the last 30 years, I feel like they've put out movies like fairly quickly. And you're talking like live action and animated. So that's a lot of, and are you talking just feature films or what about like ones that were made for TV?
We watch anything that was released in theaters. So if it started on TV, but then it came to theaters, then we'll still watch it. If it was only released direct to VHS or something like that, then we're not watching that. We also have a rule that we've recently had to set that we're only watching things that were released in the United States, because as Disney grows over the years and they get kind of into the 90s and 2000s, they start acquiring so many other studios that they're releasing things just for an audience in India or just for an audience in different places in Europe. And so we're not watching those, but yes, all of the live action, all of the Disney nature films. And sometimes when they do acquire studios based in the US, you end up with like watching a sequel to a movie that you didn't watch the original movie for. So it's a little interesting.
Oh, that would be funny. Like if there was a new Simpsons movie or something that they released, right? That would fall under your rules, even if the original Simpsons movie was not put out by.
Correct. Yeah. Wow. So that's kind of my Disney history. And then cruising, we've been on several cruises on several different lines. I think we've cruised the most with Norwegian. And our last cruise with them, I want to say it was like 2022, I guess. So kind of during that return to cruising, and sailed in Haven for them. And didn't love it. And so we can
Oh,
talk about that more
interesting.
later.
Yeah. For
But
those who don't know, Haven is Norwegian's version of what we call in Disney parlance Concierge. So it's the ship within the ship concept. Yeah.
yeah. And we also have sailed Royal, but on a much older Royal ship. We've sailed Celebrity in their kind of concierge level. And most recently, before this Disney cruise, we sailed Virgin on their Mega Rockstar category. So we like that kind of elevated category on cruises. So that is what we typically do. And this was our first time to try out Disney. We don't have kids. And I think we were a little bit nervous. Like, was it going to be too kid focused for us? But when they announced the Disney Treasure, I'm a huge Haunted Mansion fan. And so the Haunted Mansion Parlor just spoke to me. And I
They
said,
had
we've
you.
got to make it happen.
Yeah, they had you at the Treasure and then probably the Destiny as well. That's awesome. All right, so it was the Treasure was sort of the clincher for you to get you on Disney Cruise Line. Had you considered Disney, like to sail with Disney before, or were you just like, oh, I'm happy with trying out other cruise lines first? The price point is generally better, even in the concierge class, right? On whether it's Haven, or I think it's called the Retreat on Celebrity, or Rockstar, Mega Rockstar on Virgin. Even in those elevated classes, you're still on the whole. Obviously, there are exceptions if you're talking about the newest ship on Royal is as expensive as Disney, but on the whole, you can sail in a higher class of cabin with all the benefits and inclusions and all of that for still less than sometimes even main cabins in Disney.
Yeah. I think that was kind of one of the learning experiences of booking this, was that I was in my head kind of grouping like, well, you've got Carnival, Royal, and Disney. And then as I started to look at it, it's like, oh no, Disney's actually more of a luxury line, and the experience is more inclusive, and the service is going to be at a higher level. So then starting to look and compare it to maybe the Celebrity retreats or like the Princess, and kind of that like next level up. And so that took away a little bit of the sticker shock, but yeah, especially sailing Concierge on their brand new ship, it was definitely not a minor vacation expense for us, but
Sure. It's a 7-night cruise also, right? You're talking the most expensive ship. You're talking a 7-night itinerary, not a 3 or 4-night itinerary. So, of course, that cost is going to be greater because you're on for longer than a 3, 4, or even 5-night cruise. Yeah. And out of Port Canaveral, their cruises also tend to be more expensive with Disney because obviously there's the convenience of doing a, land and sea type vacation. Yeah. So easy choice for you to sail the Treasure because of Haunted Mansion, as you mentioned. As far as Eastern versus Western, did you pick in particular? I know you sailed Western. Did you pick that itinerary, or was it just a matter of these are the dates that work best for myself and my husband, and so we're going to sail on Eastern?
So originally we were looking at trying to sail over the Christmas holidays on the Treasure, which that would have been like their third or fourth sailing. And we just couldn't quite make it. And those sailings in particular were a lot more expensive even than the ones that came later. And so we kind of priced things out and found out we could actually go to Paris, stay in Paris for a week, and visit Disneyland Paris for a few days for less than we could be on one of those early cruises. So decided to do the Disneyland Paris trip over the holidays. And then that pushed us to we sailed in early May on the Treasure. And in terms of the itineraries, both of them had some places that I hadn't visited before. But, I think we had heard from people that the main attraction was getting to go to Castaway Cay. And that surprised me because I've been to other private beach clubs or private island destinations from cruise lines, and it was always fine. But I was like, how is that going to be a main draw? And spoiler alert, but everyone was right. It was a really great experience. And so, I think it was more just the dates that kind of motivated that choice for us. It also, of course, you have one less sea day on the Western. And so I like getting off and seeing a new spot and kind of just having those port excursions. So that was a draw for me as well.
No, interesting. I'm the opposite. I want more days at sea, less days at port. But you are right. Absolutely. Castaway is the destination that most people are looking for on their itinerary. Even, they might choose an itinerary just because it has Castaway or even now just because it has Lookout. But they are definitely the ports that people tend to choose with Disney, as opposed to being concerned about, oh, I'm going to Dominican Republic or Jamaica or even St. Thomas. Yeah. Well, that totally makes sense. Now, you booked Concierge for your first Disney cruise line experience, which I can't say whether or not that's a mistake because the Concierge experience is really lovely. But it does spoil you. I hate to say spoil you, but it's hard to once you sail Concierge, it is hard. I mean, now we've obviously done both and we've mostly sailed non-Concierge. For the last couple of years, we've only sailed in sort of regular again. We are sailing in Concierge this summer for Alaska, but I do think it is, it's hard to give up those benefits once you have them. But speaking of those benefits, as a first-time cruiser and sailing in Concierge, you have the best onboard booking window. Even though you are no Castaway Club status, you still are at the very front of the line with booking. I'm curious, one, did you know about this ahead of time? And two, how did onboard book, when I say onboard booking, I'm talking about excursions and drink tastings and adult dining. And for concierge sailors, this is one of the huge benefits. You get to book everything by sending an email to Shoreside Concierge and just telling them what you want. They put it all in, and that's at midnight at 130 days. And then at 123 days, I believe, when it opens to Pearl cruisers, you open the app and everything's in your app. And if you want to change stuff, you can. At that point, you have full control to, book other things, cancel things in the app. But you don't have to do anything because it's already been done for you. Just go on to make sure that everything you wanted was booked. So yeah, one, did you know about that ahead of time? And two, how did it go?
Yeah. So that actually was another primary reason I think that we ended up booking Concierge, because I really wanted to try the Haunted Mansion Lounge. And I knew when the Wish had initially debuted, they had the Hyperspace Lounge where they were doing by timed entry. And so I thought, if there's a chance that they're going to do timed entry on Haunted Mansion, then I really want to make sure that I'm able to get in there multiple times so that I can get the full experience. And so that really drove that decision I don't have any status. I'm not going to be able to get those reservations any other way. So I'll go ahead and make that decision to sail Concierge to ensure if that happens. Now, of course, that didn't end up being an issue with the Haunted Mansion Lounge. Fun fact, I actually think they should be doing it that way because it's crazy crowded in Haunted Mansion Lounge. But
especially I would say the first couple of days. It tends to die down later in the cruise or on port days when they open, although they tend to open later on port days. But you're right, especially those first couple of days, it's a little crowded.
Yeah,
and if you want to take
to see all of the features when people are constantly coming in and out and standing and all of that. So
yes, it's one of those things where I feel like you pop your head in at the beginning of the cruise, but if you really want to see everything that's in that space, you got to go later in the cruise to really take in everything and to be able to kind of enjoy the space and sit through the entire so I think about 45-minute sequence of everything that happens in there. Yep. But yeah,
exactly. So that was kind of why we had opted for Concierge. And so absolutely, I did know about the deadline and emailing things in. The challenge for us is that our 130-day window was Christmas Eve and we were in Paris. And so we set up a Google auto schedule email to go through, and that worked. But the auto reply that I got didn't come back to me until like 12:03. So I think I was a little late for some of the people that had, really been right there on it. And because of that, we did request a cabana at Castaway, and we were not successful even being in concierge class. So it sounds like with the Wish class of ships, that does tend to happen more than with the earlier ships. But I know we weren't the only ones in concierge that were a little bit disappointed they weren't able to secure a cabana for that trip. But everything else was, we got what we wanted. We did Palo Brunch, and we got the exact sea day that we wanted and the time that we wanted. We had, I think, requested, special drinks in our fridge, and they were there waiting for us. So all of those things went great. The only thing that kind of we were unsuccessful at was the cabana.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, we always set up an auto email as well, even though we don't have to, right? Like if the last time we were doing booking, we were also on a cruise. And so we needed to set up the auto email in advance because we were on the Treasure and we were booking for our Alaska cruise, which excursion's really, really important excursion booking. But that's how we tend to do it, an auto email. Another thing, if you're working with a travel advisor, you can always ask them to send it, but they're probably going to do the same thing, which is to set up an auto email. So I do recommend to people have it all written out, everything you want, like a couple of days in advance. And maybe you might refine it a couple of times. You might change your mind about things and then have it set to auto email at exactly midnight, not at, you don't need to have it set at 12:01. It needs to be at 12 a.m. So as soon as the clock strikes midnight and your carriage turns into a pumpkin. So, and it's midnight Eastern time. So you set up the email for, make sure the time zone is correct. It's midnight
and
Eastern.
Try not to be in Paris because that will really mess up your time.
And it just screws it up in your head, frankly, right? Like it's just getting it straight, what time zone. And we always just set our email, like we'll literally set it to like send out at midnight Eastern on this date, right? Because it's that date when it turns midnight. Well, let's jump into some of the, of course, let's jump into your trip. I want to talk about the concierge benefits. I want to focus the show on the concierge benefits. And I also want to get your take now that you have sailed in Disney's concierge. And of course, you mentioned both the Retreat and in the Haven on Celebrity and Norwegian. It's super interesting to hear, I think, your take on the comparisons between those things in terms of benefits, but also in terms of, service. And of course, we'll hit that ultimate question of, is sailing concierge on Disney worth it? Because I think that's a huge thing that people are always, curious to hear about. So let's dive in. You guys fly to Orlando, I presume to MCO. I know you spent a little bit of time at the parks in advance, and you hit up a very fine restaurant at Walt Disney World. Tell us where you went for dinner the night before your cruise.
Yes. So we were so lucky to have gotten a reservation for Victoria and Albert's, specifically in the Queen Victoria room where they serve the extended tasting menu. It's only 4 tables per night that get that experience. It's 4 tables of 2 people each. So 8 people per night can do that. And we were 2 of the lucky 8 on that. That was, by the way, not a reservation that I initially got with my Disney dining, but props to Mouse Savers on that one, that we were able to find the time. But it was such an exquisite meal. I mean, just the service, the wine pairings, the courses. It was, obviously, again, a more expensive treat, but something that if you do have a special occasion, it's hard to think of something that would beat that experience in Orlando.
Yeah, absolutely. We did the same experience. Now, it's been a number of years. It was trying to remember, I think that if it was it might have been in 2020 when we did that, right before the world shut down. I think we might have done it when we did Marathon Weekend.
Oh, that's perfect. Because then you don't have to feel guilty about all the food you're eating.
Yeah. Well, and we jumped on a cruise. I'm trying to remember if it was then or if it was 2019. It was a trip with my mom where, and I just can't remember which, if it was marathon weekend or if it was a different trip. But anyway, yeah, we loved it. We had a great experience. But I got to tell you, Whitney, I think if you like Victoria and Albert's, I got to tell you, I think that Enchante or Remy on Disney Cruise Line is a better value. Like for your, like, I think it's as good of an experience, if not better, dare I say, and better value because the cost, of course, is a decent charge, but it's not quite the cost of eating on land at the same because obviously they sort of figure in that you're giving up your dining in main dining. So it is a reduced price as compared to the same caliber meal on land. So I definitely have to tell you, you got to do it. I know you did Palo Brunch on this cruise. I'm excited to hear about what you thought. But I think if you sail on Disney again, I would strongly encourage you. Of course, if you're on the Magic or the Wonder, they don't have those restaurants, but I would strongly encourage you if you're somebody who likes that level of fine dining, you would really
that
enjoy
is
it.
in fact the plan. So I won't spoil. We can talk about it at the end.
Oh, yay.
Upcoming Disney plans. But
yes, I love it.
I'm very much hoping to get to experience that. We didn't book it for this cruise just because it was our first Disney experience. And I was really excited about the included rotational dining restaurants, especially Coco, wanting to see the shows, wanting to see the Marvel shows. And so, I think just with that, it's the Treasure, and I'm assuming all the Wish class ships are just so jam packed with features and activities and lounges and all of that I think you can't even really get it all in one cruise to try and experience everything. And so kind of made that decision early on that, hey, if we go and we love the food, then that's just a reason to go again to get to experience that other restaurant.
I honestly think that's a great outlook to have and a great way to go into it. Like I do tend to discourage people from doing adult dining their first time on Disney Cruise Line only because it takes a long chunk of time and you are like going to have FOMO about all the other stuff that's going on the cruise. And it doesn't matter how many times you go on Disney Cruise Line, there are always going to be things that you just can't fit into the schedule. There's so much going on. And so if you're somebody like me who wants to like do a million different things, you're never going to be able to do every single one of those things. So I think if you have to cut something out of your like particularly first cruise, like that's a good decision point. So let's talk about the boarding experience. You get to actually, how did you guys get to Port Canaveral?
We took a private transfer and that was fantastic. I know a lot of people really enjoy the Disney shuttles. And we did see several of those along the way on the highway. But I think, if you are looking for kind of a special treat for yourself, like doing a private shuttle was great. We got to hear the person that was our driver actually is a former cast member as well.
Oh, cool.
And so he was able to share lots of his Disney experience, and it just made us even more excited to get on the cruise. So that was great.
Oh, awesome. I love that. All right. So you get to Port Canaveral. How does the check-in process go? And did you spend any time in the sort of, I don't want to call it concierge lounge, but the lounge that's for concierge in the port, because it's not the concierge lounge, but it is the port concierge lounge. Yeah.
So we left Orlando at about 9:45, and we arrived at the port just around like 10:40. So we didn't have any traffic. So because of that, it was a really smooth experience. We handed off our luggage to the porters. They were already letting people into the port building. So went straight through, did security, did our check-in. And then, yes, we're quickly guided over to the lounge space. We did stop and take pictures with the giant ship replica and all of that, but went over, and it was crowded by the time that we went on. I think it was around 11:15 that they came. When you're in that separate waiting area, of course, the concierge team will come out. They all introduce themselves and let you know a few things about what you can experience that week, and then guide the concierge families on. The first, I think, are the family of the cruise or whatever,
Family of the
followed by
day. Yes. Yeah. So the family of the day and then back-to-back
back-to-backs.
cruisers. But
Yeah.
back-to-back cruisers are kind of like shuffled on with no pomp and circumstance. And then concierge gets to go in and then they start doing the other boarding groups. Yeah. So it's pretty quick
Exactly.
though.
It
Yeah.
was. And so we were, I think, like the third or fourth family from the concierge group that made it on. They did the announcement, which was lovely. And then the concierge staff is kind of trying to shuttle all of the folks into the concierge included lunch, which on the Treasure was in 1923. One thing that was kind of cool about that, we didn't go straight there, but when we did eventually make our way there, we got to eat on the Walt Disney side, whereas our dinners in 1923 were on the Roy Disney side. So it was kind of nice to get the full experience. But we kind of decided to take an alternate plan because I was still hunting for that cabana on Castaway. And so we headed directly to the concierge lounge to see if we could get an on ship wait list and see kind of how things were going for that. Didn't end up working out for us, but we did go ahead and put down that request. Got to meet some more of the staff that were already there. They were pouring champagne in the concierge lounge as well. So we grabbed a couple glasses of champagne and then just walked around the ship for a little bit to get our bearings before ultimately, I think around 1:00, we finally did make our way over to the concierge lunch. The concierge lunch is pretty similar menu to the regular on main dining lunch if you go that route, but just with a few additional extras. But I think the bonus that a lot of people are excited about is you get free beer or wine at that lunch. So we did have, I think, a couple glasses of bubbles with our lunch. So it was a nice way to start the cruise and just not feel like you had to be fighting in a buffet the second you got on board.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice way. I think the sit down lunch, whether you're sailing concierge or not, is a wonderful start to the cruise. I do warn people with young kids that it is a little bit slower than if you went to Marceline Market or Cabanas, depending upon what ship you're on. But you don't have to carry plates of food for your little ones. They're just sitting and somebody's bringing you the food. So in some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder. Just kind of depends on what are the challenges. If you've got little ones, if you are adults only, just choose your own adventure. They're both great options. And of course you got the pool deck food on the Wish class, so which is phenomenal, but we'll talk about that more. I do think that was a super smart idea, though, to go to the lounge first before going to the lunch, because so for folks who haven't sailed concierge, if you sail on the Wish class, you will meet the concierge host, as Whitney mentioned, in the port terminal in the sort of concierge waiting area. And they will explain to you as a group a bunch of the benefits of concierge, and they'll let you know where the lounge is if you don't already know, and what hours it's open, that sort of a thing. And they'll also give you a little bit of if you want to early entry to the theater, things like that, they'll tell you where to go for all of that and when to meet where. But they don't come to the concierge lunch like they do on the 4 original ships. On the 4 original ships, meaning Magic, Wonder, Dream, Fantasy, the concierge hosts come to the sit-down concierge lunch, and they will go around table to table to talk to you and sort of give you that same information on an individual basis, and also check if you have any requests that weren't sort of fulfilled ahead of time, like spa appointments, adult dining, cabana requests, all that kind of stuff. And so you can take care of that stuff at lunch on the 4 original ships, but on the Wish and the Treasure, and of course the Destiny, when she comes out, you have to go to the lounge to take care of any of those requests. And that's just simply because there are too many people. They are not able to go around and speak to everyone in time if they did it at the lunch. And they know that from experience, because when the Wish came out, they tried to do it that way and it just didn't work. And so they stopped that practice on the Wish class. So, but I do think they do have a different wait list on board than there is a wait list pre-cruise for cabanas. But the wait list on board is the wait list you need to get on, because I don't believe that transfers over to the ship. I think once everything closes, which is 2 days, basically once bookings close 2 days before. When I say bookings, I mean excursion bookings, and everything's going to get billed. Everything transfers to the onboard team. The onboard team doesn't get transferred a waiting list. And so if you want a cabana on board, if you want a chance at a cabana, you really have to be sailing concierge and talk to the concierge host. And they do sometimes become available because people do sometimes cancel on board. And technically speaking, they don't have to let you cancel, but they always do because there's always somebody that wants one. And so as long as they can fill your spot, they don't really care who has it. So so very smart. I'm sorry it didn't work out, Whitney, but I think you did all the right thing.
God.
You did it all right. It's just on the Wish class, there's just so many concierge rooms. And there's only so many cabanas. Now, once the new cabanas are fully built, which you probably saw in the
Serenity
distance,
Bay.
yes, there are going to be more cabanas, and that will, I think, make getting a cabana when you're selling concierge a little bit easier. It will still be just as difficult for the regular folk. So
Yeah, we did walk down there actually during our Castaway Day, and it looks like all of them are framed in at least. And that was in early May. So we'll see, how long it takes before they kind of start opening those for bookings. But fingers crossed that does make the concierge process easier, or the cabana process easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to talk about some of the other benefits of concierge. Of course, we mentioned the lounge. I'm curious what you thought of I think the lounge on the Wish class is hands down the best in the fleet. But I'm curious what you thought of it and how you thought it compared to sort of lounges and sun decks that you've seen on, other ships on Celebrity and on Norwegian.
Yeah. So based on having been in those other lounges, we really didn't think that we were going to use the lounge much. When we were on the Norwegian Bliss and we were in Haven, we went to the lounge to get drinks, and that was kind of it. We didn't really see any benefit to being in the lounge. The interaction with the staff in Norwegian just is not at all the same as it is on Disney. Whereas on Disney, by the first evening, several of the concierge hosts already were calling myself and my husband by our first names. They asked, what our drinks were. If our drinks got even just a little bit low during the concierge happy hour from 5 to 10 p.m. every night, they're refilling automatically. And so you really build up that relationship very quickly with the concierge staff on Disney. And I didn't experience that on Norwegian at all.
Well, and not even just the hosts, but to your point, like even the bar staff. There's the hosts who are basically like what you think of as a hotel concierge. You had a problem, that's the person you talk to. You want a dinner reservation, that's the person you talk to. But there's all this other staff that are sort of setting up and delivering the food, and also the bartenders, and come around with champagne and things like that. So all of those staff, I feel like you might not get to talk to every single person that works there, but the people who are there like all the time, or like bartender Francisco, like he will learn your drink order. If you order the same drink, twice, he'll know your drink order the next day, right?
And we did have a bartender Francisco, actually.
Yes, yes. It's the same Francisco. I know he was on the Wish, and then he moved on to the Treasure. And I didn't know if he was on there that month, but he's been on the Treasure. Yeah, he's been on the Treasure for a while. He's wonderful.
He's fantastic. The whole staff was fantastic. And I always thought it was weird during my research ahead of the cruise that people are like, oh, is this host on or is this host on? And I was like, who cares, right? Like they're just going to pour you a drink. But no, you get invested, and you hear their backstory and what their hobbies are and the families that they may be away from when they're sailing. And so,
Sophie's getting married in a couple of weeks,
right? Yeah. So, I mean, it was just, it felt like a much higher level of service to me compared to Norwegian. Celebrity, I did Celebrity to Alaska. And for that, because they have an enclosed sun deck on the ship that I was on, that was a really nice thing to have in Alaska in particular. I think, just you spend so much time just in awe of the scenery for that. So that was one that I did spend a little bit more time, but really just overall, I would say that I did spend a lot more time in the lounge than I thought I was going to. We ended up having breakfast there most days. And I'm not even a huge breakfast person, but when there's the Mickey waffles are right there and they want to bring them to you. So why not?
I mean, who doesn't like a Mickey waffle? Except you got to go to a Marceline Market to get the churro Mickey waffles on
Actually, you
Castaway Day.
don't. So the concierge lounge gets, at least on Wish Class, gets a special early preview of Churro Waffle Day. So we
No
got
way.
Churro Waffles on our Grand Cayman Day, whereas everyone else got them on Castaway Day. So I got to do double the Mickey Churro Waffle.
Oh my God. I mean, that if that's not a reason alone to pay for concierge, I don't know what it is. I'm joking, but I love
They should
Mickey
put that
Churro
on the
waffles.
website for sure.
They should put that. I did not know that, Whitney. You know, it's been too long since I've sold concierge, clearly. I will say, for those listening, the breakfast options on the Wish Class include hot breakfast options like Mickey waffles and Mickey churro waffles, and also like egg sandwiches and things like that. On the other ships, it is just I'll call it a continental style breakfast. It's a nice buffet. It's like there's cereal, there's fruit, there's yogurt and granola and things like that, pastries, but they don't have hot breakfast items that you can order. Although it might be, I can't remember. I know that the Dream has gone through her dry dock. The Dream may be the exception. And so they may have hot breakfast items on the Dream now, or hot food items, I should say, on the Dream.
Are you listening to our show because you want to make the most out of your next vacation? Great news, the fabulous team over at My Path Unwinding Travel can help guide you so you don't miss a thing. Their team of professional travel advisors are caring, knowledgeable, and experienced. It's why we use them to book our own travel. My Path Unwinding Travel is an authorized Disney vacation planner, which means they are recognized by Disney for their expertise and service. They have sailed on all the Disney ships, including in Concierge, visited the theme parks, adventured with Disney, relaxed at Aulani, and so much more. Whether it's a Disney cruise, a theme park vacation, or Adventures by Disney, or if you are looking to expand beyond the mouse, My Path Unwinding Travel will elevate your next vacation planning experience. Even if you have already booked, reach out for a complimentary consultation to make your vacation even more magical. Ready to talk to the experts? Head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCL Duo or email dclduo@mypathunwinding.com so they know we sent you their way. Thanks, My Path Unwinding, for sponsoring today's show. Now back to the episode.
About the food in Concierge, because I do think this is one area where Disney really shines, in that basically there's food available all the time. Yeah. Tell us what was available, for those who don't know, and what you thought of the quality of the food.
Yeah. So in the mornings, it starts with breakfast. So they do have a case towards the back with cold items. So sliced fruit, granola and yogurt bars, acai bowls, that sort of thing. They have a variety of different kinds of pastries. And then there is the hot menu item as well. There's about 4 things on it that are consistent throughout the entire cruise, and then a couple things that kind of rotate each day. So if you do want variety, you don't have to eat the same thing every day. We fell in love with this breakfast sandwich that they had. And so we did end up ordering that almost every day. Again, I'm not normally a breakfast person, but it was there. And so we did.
That breakfast sandwich is so good. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So good.
And they also have in that particular lounge 3 different of the automatic coffee machines. And we are huge coffee drinkers. And so that was so nice too, to be able to go and get a cappuccino in the morning, not have to go all the way to the Cove Cafe, which is on the full other side of the ship from at least where our stateroom was. And kind of like, it's hard to get to the Cove Cafe on the Wish Class ships. Like, it's tucked in there.
Yes.
So,
it's really far away. I actually highly recommend going to one of the other, like Hey Cafe or Jade Cricket, because those are, I mean, they can get kind of crowded in the morning because of coffee orders, but I would say those are just easier to get to than Cove Cafe is so far away.
Yeah. So we definitely got a couple cappuccinos every morning. And then around, I want to say it's like 10:30ish, they do switch over to kind of their lunch offerings. And the cold case becomes just snack type items. They have a cheese plate, they have tea sandwiches, they have lots of different kinds of desserts if you want cookies or cake pops or anything like that. Then they have a small lunch menu, and then same for dinner. They have a dinner menu as well. We did not eat lunch or dinner in the concierge lounge, but we did certainly take advantage of the snacks because they have the happy hour from 5 to 10. I like to get a glass of wine and pair that with a cheese plate was my go-to just about every night. And that was just great to grab a little snack. We had the later dinner seating. We had done that intentionally since we don't have kids. We had heard it was, slightly fewer children usually in the later seating. So we did that, but that, meant that around 5, you might get a little peckish. So it was great to have that option to just pop in and get a couple light snacks.
Yeah, I think that's a super smart idea. And I think the food in general in Concierge is really good. With the standout for me being that breakfast sandwich and then the tea sandwiches. I cannot say enough about that.
The breakfast sandwich was incredible. I'm still like wishing someone would make it for me at home. But I also think that people don't realize that when you're concierge as well, you get in the rotational dining that you are usually given kind of a premier seating area. So that, and I assume perhaps more senior wait staff as well in a lot of cases. And so we had wonderful servers at dinner as well. And we were so close to the stages. At Coco, we were one table back from the stage, which was great because we could really see all the action without feeling the performers were tripping over us or anything. At Marvel, we were again like one table back from the screen, so we could see the full thing, feel like we were right in the action. But so that was really nice too. And overall, I was really impressed. I mean, we're clearly foodies. We're heading to Victoria and Albert's just for fun. So that means that we have a high bar for food. And I think it is definitely at the top of any of the cruise lines that I've sailed. The only one that can even kind of equal that level of food across the board was Virgin. They do have great food on Virgin as well, but definitely, in my opinion, hands down better than Norwegian or Celebrity or Royal in terms of their main dining foods.
Yeah. I thought on Virgin that there were some things that were better and fancier than like Disney, but I also felt like it was a little bit inconsistent, whereas I feel like Disney is a little bit more consistent. Like there were some really big hits, but also some really big misses on Virgin. Just my personal opinion. So I felt like consistency wise, Disney eked out over Virgin, but there, like I said, there were some things on Virgin that were quite, stand out. I would put above, Disney main dining. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think consistently, like Disney scores well in the food category. And I don't just mean Mickey's mac and cheese that Nathan is obsessed with. So,
chicken tenders.
Those chicken tenders, right? Yeah. Life-changing, exactly. But I think that's a good point. I do think that if you're sailing concierge, you do tend to get a more premier, that's a good way to describe it, more premier seating. You're not going to be in the back of Arendelle on the Wish or Coco on the Treasure. And there's not really a bad table in Marvel because most of them are close to some screen. But I think your seating in Coco or Arendelle is certainly going to be better, closer to the stage typically.
Yeah. And in 1923, even we were right in a porthole window as well. So nice there as well. And that wasn't something that we requested. That just happened just because we're concierge.
Did you guys get seated with anybody else or were you seated just the two of you?
Just the two of us. And it seems like that they typically opt to do that for concierge unless you make a request otherwise.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But it's hard. It's always hard for me to tell because a lot of the time we've sailed with other people. And so we're often requesting to be seated with other people. And so it's been a while since we've sailed where we haven't put in a request like to sit or not sit with other people. And so I haven't always been sure if that's the case, but that's what I've anecdotally tended to hear. I want to talk about the theater because at the beginning, and when I say theater, I mean the main stage, the Walt Disney Theater, not the movie theaters. No priority seating for the movie theaters. That's for everybody. When the maiden voyage happened for the Treasure, I don't believe they were giving concierge that premier access to the theaters because let's face it, people were lining up an hour before the show to see, particularly to see Moana, but even for Beauty and the Beast, less so for Seize the Adventure. I got to ask, one, did you go to the shows? And two, did the concierge hosts get you guys premiere, or when I say premiere, early access to the theater?
Yeah, so we did go see all three shows and we did take advantage. They generally about 40 minutes before the posted time for the show, they had us line up on one of the lower decks, just along the kind of hallway. And then one of the concierge hosts would come and get us, lead us through a backstage area. In that backstage area, they gave us, if we wanted them, popcorn and bottles of water to take into the theater with us. And then we got our choice of seats. They also let the ADA folks in at that same time so that they could get appropriate seating. And then after everyone in that group had kind of chosen where they were going to land, then they opened the doors to everyone else. And I have to say it was really, really nice especially on Moana, because people were, I mean, even in May, still lining up an hour ahead of time. And I know that was especially for families with young kids that weren't thrilled with that experience, because it's just hard to keep a toddler entertained for that long. And so I think that was one of the perks that I really, really appreciated.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that will continue to be the case for maybe at least another. Well, I mean, she's still on her first year, right, of sailing. And so there's a lot of most people who are sailing the Treasure are sailing for the very first time on that ship. And so they have yet to see Moana. They may have seen Seize the Adventure if they've sailed on the Wish. They may have seen Beauty and the Beast if they've sailed on the Dream. But if they haven't sailed on both of those, there might be lining up for those shows as well. But I think for a while, it's going to be that Moana will have a line. And then the same thing is going to happen on the Destiny for Hercules. And so that is a huge benefit. As I mentioned, it's not generally, they will generally, when the ship is first opening, they won't necessarily introduce that benefit right away with Concierge, because it's just so much demand and they don't want to make people really angry. But I understand it. I mean, from this, Disney is a pay to play corporation, and that is just normal these days. I feel like in, theme parks, cruising, whatever, right? If you're paying a premium, you have to get some benefit out of it. And one of those benefits that they introduced several years ago now is that early access to the theaters. So makes sense.
I appreciate that actually about Disney, is that it feels like, if you're willing to put money up to make problems go away, the problems absolutely will go away on Disney. And they're very upfront about that. I think a lot of cruise lines can feel a little bit bait and switch about some things, that you think you're getting one thing, you get on board and it's not quite exactly as promised. Disney is very transparent about, you pay this is what you're going to get. You don't pay this is what you're going to get. And so I think it's as far as those go, I know some people say, oh, Disney, it's everything has price tag associated with it. I do feel they do a good job making sure that you're getting value out of those additional price tags if you choose to pay them.
Yeah. Well, and they've done the same thing at the parks, whether it's that Premier Pass Lightning Lane thing that they've got, or a VIP tour, right? Like there are ways that they will upsell, but you get some significant benefit out of it. So it's just a matter of like, what's important to you, right? Do you want to wait outside the theater for an hour, or do you want to, sort of show up 40 minutes before and get your absolute choice of seating? So, there are definitely decision points, I think, for different people on that.
I'll also say too, they were offering, at least on our sailing, for Beauty and the Beast and Moana, they did 3 showings a day.
I love that. Shows. I love when they do the
that
matinee.
Did help, and especially it seemed like that matinee show was the least crowded. So if that is something that maybe you're not sailing Concierge and you don't really want to wait as long as you might have to on the later shows, try that earlier show if you can.
Yeah. I think the matinees are wonderful when they have them, because the folks with younger children, if they've got early dining, those kids may be like going to bed right after dining. They're not able to stay up for an 8 p.m. show or 8:15 p.m. show, right? And so it is really nice. I've heard from a lot of folks with younger kids that they love a matinee because they feel completely comfortable bringing their children to it. The show's only, an hour anyway. And then their kid can go to bed shortly after dinner and they don't have to keep them up till 10 o'clock at night or way past their bedtime at least. So I think it's a great benefit. And it makes everybody happy, because then the later shows are not quite as packed, and you're more likely that everybody who wants to get a seat is able to get a seat. Well, I want to talk about some of the other benefits you mentioned in the lounge, which is drinks. So tell folks what they can expect as far as uh, let's talk both soft drinks and alcoholic drinks. So what they can expect as far as availability and what's included.
Yeah. So in terms of soft drinks, that was one thing that I probably could have done more research on. Was I didn't realize that it was just as much as you wanted of non-alcoholic drinks kind of all throughout the day. But they have Coca-Cola products, right? So all kind of the standards, but also some whatever their orange soda is, things like that.
Yeah, Fanta. My kiddo loves Fanta. That's how I know.
They also have a couple different types of waters. I think there was Smart Water and a Dasani. The Dasani was in an aluminum can, which is kind of interesting for a water. Yeah. But we had ordered the water package.
Oh, I was going to say, if you buy the water package, it is like usually the can. It's either the aluminum bottle or the aluminum can. It just kind of depends what's in stock. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had ordered the water package because we were thinking, oh, we need to stay hydrated. We didn't need it because we could have just gotten those bottles from the lounge each day. But that was great to just be able to kind of grab and go anything that we wanted. And then from 5 to 10 every night, they do a happy hour where it's really whatever you want that's behind the bar. So I tend to be more of a wine drinker. And so they were for champagne. I think they were pouring Moet, which is a nice, perfectly nice bottle there. For red wine, I believe they had the Prisoner was so a pretty, it's like a $30-ish bottle of wine that they were pouring for red. I don't remember what whites they had. But it's also open bar. So, I mean, if you wanted a mixed drink, that it seemed like old fashions were the cocktail of the trip. Everybody was ordering old fashions.
I feel like the old fashions are like the cocktail of like the last like decade now or something. They're so popular in Hooks Barbary as well, obviously. And so, but yeah, Brian absolutely loves an old fashioned from Hooks Barbary, from the Concierge Lounge, wherever. Yeah.
And my husband does too. And they if you have a specific request for a bourbon or a rye that you're looking for, and they have it on board because it's served in one of their other bars, usually if you make the request, they can often go get that for you. So I think on ours, we saw there was Angel's Envy was there regularly, which very nice rye as well. So everyone seemed very satisfied with the offerings. I saw a lot of martinis getting made. Espresso martinis were very popular as well. So a lot of those throughout the night. But we would typically go grab a drink right before the show, take the drink with us into the show, and then come back for another drink after the show to take with us into dinner. And so that was lovely because then you don't feel like you need to order a drink at dinner. So it makes things a little bit smoother, that it just makes your experience, you don't have to put thought into it because it's all just provided for you.
Yeah, it definitely gets you into that routine. We tend to do that same routine. The only thing I would say is the drawback of Concierge, and this is not a negative on Concierge, it's just you spend so much time in the lounge because of those benefits and because it's such a nice, lovely, quiet space with all these yummy little bites of, charcuterie or tea sandwiches, that I find I tend to do less like exploring outside of Concierge, meaning I'll spend less time in Scat Cat and less time in the Skipper Society, right? And less time in maybe even Haunted Lounge, although I have to say I don't like the drinks in the Haunted Mansion Lounge.
Neither did we.
Oh, yeah, there you go. But I love the space. Sweet. Yes, yeah. I love the space, but we didn't like really any of the drinks, including the sodas. We tried some of the sodas and they're too sweet. Yeah,
I agree with you. It's really easy to do that. I would say that we made an effort to hit every lounge that we could. I think the one we never made it to the Rose. So that was one. And Scat Cat, I'm not sure why every time we were in Scat Cat, they were playing classical music, which no hit on classical music, but I was like ready for Elton John or something like that. So it was just a different vibe than I think we were expecting. You're right that we had to kind of intentionally make that happen because the default was so lovely.
Yes. Well, and the drinks are included in the lounge. The drinks are not included if you go to Scat Cat, right?
Exactly.
So like if you're like, oh, I already paid for concierge, I already paid for my drinks, but then you're just, I think, less likely to, even if you go to those spaces, you're less likely to sort of linger and spend a lot of time in those spaces.
And there's one other drink I want to mention in Concierge that I don't think a lot of people know about, but on the Wish class ships, if you go up to the sun deck, they have the kind of smoothie machines. That is the only place that you can get Dole Whip on the ship. And so if you are a Dole Whip fan, keep that in mind. And it's entirely possible to go to the Concierge bar, ask for some rum, and then make your Dole Whip into an adult Dole Whip if that's something you're interested in. So that was fantastic too. Those are kind of tucked away. I don't think a lot of people realize they're even there, but they're up on the sun deck level with the hot tubs.
Yeah. Now on the older ships, there is a bar on the pool deck. On the regular pool deck, there's one of the bars that does sell Dole Whip, and you can get an alcoholic Dole Whip or non-alcoholic, but the smoothie style, not ice cream. Like at parks, obviously you can get either. But you're right. I think on Wish class, I think it's the only place that I think the smoothie exists is in the sun deck lounge, and it's delicious, I must say. I have had the non-alcoholic version, and I just think it's fantastic. Love that. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think, are there other benefits we haven't talked about? Oh, I'll mention if you're staying in a 1-bedroom category or higher, you can also get hot breakfast delivered to your room. If you're staying in a concierge family veranda, which is lovely, you can get the same continental breakfast that anybody else can get delivered to your room, but you can't get the hot breakfast. That's only for 1-bedroom suites and higher. So 2 bedrooms, royals, whatever. And so that's another concierge benefits. I'm trying to think if you do get priority disembarkation.
Yeah, I think the only other thing is perhaps the internet. So you get,
good point. Yeah.
Yeah, you get 24 hours of free internet. And what is interesting about that is that it doesn't have to be concurrent. That's per person, and it doesn't have to be at the same time. So if one of you wants to do it, wait until I guess you're at sea before, because you won't need it before then, but you can turn that on for 24 hours. And then once that one runs out, you can turn your other one on for 24 hours. So if you were thinking of, you want an internet package, but maybe you don't need it every day, that can be nice as well. For us, though, it had the opposite effect that I had it and then I wanted it. So
yes,
then
and then you want internet. Yes, I feel the same way, Whitney. I think once you get a taste of that sweet internet, you're like, oh, I think I need it all. I need it for the rest of the cruise. And it is, I have to say, it's expensive. I mean, like all of cruise internet is expensive. But it's actually pretty fast. Like it is a better, what they used to have was terrible. It was like you paid by the megabyte, and it was slow and it was glitchy. And what they upgraded to is on all the ships now is actually quite good, internet. Well, before I subject you to some rapid fire, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Haunted Mansion Parlor, because that was, the impetus for booking this ship and booking this cruise. The thing that tipped you over the edge was the Haunted Mansion Parlor. Was it worth the hype?
It's a super cool experience. They have really carried the Imagineering into so many different nooks and crannies of that space that everything from some of the original Imagineers that worked on the Haunted Mansion ride, you see them honored in different things there, to Donald's chair from some of the early Walt Disney cartoons is featured in there. You have the skeleton fish, which are so fun. You have the songs that play, and so kind of just seeing the full rotation is, even if you don't drink or you don't want their drinks, whatever it may be, it's so cool just to make your way in there. And so that's my news on what's coming next, is that we have booked a cruise on the Disney Destiny. So we're going to get to experience that again. We actually have 2 cruises booked, in fact, because we're also going to do Very Merry Time on the Magic. And we're not going to be concierge for that one. We are for the Destiny. We're not for the Magic. Just kind of looking at, especially because the Very Merry Time on the Magic sails out of Galveston. And when you're not able to get a cabana, some of the other kind of benefits aren't there on an older ship. It just didn't feel like it was quite necessary for us. But especially on the Destiny, again, it being a new ship with a lot of new things that people are going to be wanting to check out, we thought that splurge was worth it again. And so we're super excited. We're actually staying in the exact same stateroom that we stayed in on the Treasures. So at least we'll know the lay of the land a little bit.
Yeah. And is your cruise going to Lookout or Castaway or both?
Going to both. Yeah. So we'll get both.
And you get like twice the chance of getting a cabana as well.
I know.
Yeah.
I figure I need every chance I get. So hopefully this will be the one that we actually get the cabana experience.
Love it. I think you've made the right choices. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not sure that the concierge experience is as worth it on the Magic. I would differ if it was the Wonder, because the Wonder has a better lounge and a sun deck, whereas the Magic doesn't have really any sun deck. It's kind of there's kind of this weird space that is partially enclosed. It's not really a sun deck, but I just think, I think in general, I'm not sure the Magic experience is worth it, especially if you're not going to be going to one of Disney's private islands and there's sort of cabanas out of the question.
Yeah, I think on the Magic, it was going to be just whether or not like we wanted to guarantee our Palo dinners, and that didn't feel, it was for our sailing about an extra $1,000 a night. That didn't seem like a necessary expense.
And honestly, you'll be able to get a Palo dinner. If you're trying, Palo dinner is easier to get than a Palo brunch, I think, especially if you're flexible on which day. I bet you'll be just fine. All right. Well, especially for married time, because that's going to be a more family heavy cruise. All right. Well, before I hit rapid fire, because I realize I need to ask you a couple more questions about other cruise lines and Disney. I'm curious if you thought that I don't want to quite ask the worth it question yet, but I want to ask, like, when you compare the Haven and you compare the Retreat and look at, Concierge on Disney, were there major differences as far as like what's included and what's not included that you think are important for people to kind of know if they're looking at those?
I think the specific inclusions are similar across all three. Early booking availability for the different excursions or things, having a lounge space, usually some level of drinks are included as well. But what really set Disney apart for us was the level of service that we got. And so I think there's specific times that I could see concierge. I'm not like I've done concierge once, so I can never do it again or do anything else again type person. I think that there's times that it really makes sense. Alaska is one that I think that could make a lot of sense to do kind of whatever that higher level is on whatever cruise ship you're doing. So that especially if you have a glacier viewing option, those book up so fast that I think making sure that you can get that sort of thing is really nice. And then if it is especially a newer ship that's going to be in high demand, I feel like that's also, people can be a little more frenetic on a new ship trying to do and see everything. So just making it so that you're basically convinced that you're going to be able to do everything that you're going to want to be able to do. I think those are the options that I would really recommend that people take a look at it. But Disney to me stood out head and shoulders above the Haven, head and shoulders above kind of some of those other offerings. The one Virgin is a really nice offering. It's just very different from Disney. So we did Mega Rockstar on Virgin, and that is it's almost like comparable to being in like a tower suite or something on Disney, right? Because you have your own personal roadie that is basically your own
your agent. You
have this fabulous suite. You have free drinks at any bar all over the ship.
Right. And a full bar in your room. And
yes. So that level, I think, is the only one that I felt the service was really comparable to what Disney provided. But it's, it's adults only on Virgin. And so if you're going for a family cruise, that's not an option for you anyway. And so I think it's just a very different flavor of ship. It's a great time, but it's much more, it felt more like a party ship to me, whereas Disney felt like kind of more of an immersive vacation.
Yeah. Oh, I love that description, an immersive vacation. All right. Well, now is the time that I have to subject you to some arbitrary rules, some arbitrary questions, and a dash of judgment, or the round we call rapid fire. I can't do my own intro for that, you guys. I'm sorry. It's not as good as when Brian does it. All right. Whitney, I'm going to ask you some Disney favorites and, of course, some Disney Cruise Line favorites. Obviously, the Treasure is your favorite ship, so I'm not going to ask you that question because you've only been on the Treasure. You're not allowed to choose other ships. Let's start with who is your favorite Disney character? And by Disney, I mean everything and anything that Disney owns.
I'm going to go with Tiana, big Princess and the Frog fan. So
love it. All right, favorite Disney movie?
Ooh, right now I'm in a Frozen 2 kick.
I love that.
Yeah, I think Frozen 2 is the better Frozen movie. I don't like the girls squabbling in the first one. Own your power, ladies. And,
I love it. I'm with you, Whitney. I also think that what's the song? Lost in the Woods is like just the best rock ballad.
And back to the 80s music videos. It's perfect.
I just love that. And who doesn't love Into the Unknown? It's a super good. I think the soundtrack is superior to the original Frozen, and I'm all about the soundtrack. So I love that. All right. What's your favorite Disney song?
Ooh. Well, the one that has been kind of on endless replay in my head is the Tiki 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 Room. I don't know why that just has branded itself into my head.
It's an earworm.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's actually our door decor that we did for this cruise was Enchanted Tiki Room themed. So we found bird magnets and palm trees and tiki heads and stuff. And so this was our Enchanted Tiki cruise door.
I love it. That's awesome. All right. Now we're going to transfer over to the Disney Treasure. What was your favorite show? And when I say show, I'm talking the 3 main stage shows, not variety acts, although sometimes those can be wonderful. You have 3 choices, but let's be honest, you really only have 2 choices. All right.
So this is going to be a hot take for some people, I think, but I preferred Beauty and the Beast over Moana. It was.
They're both great. I can't give you any shade or judgment on that call because Beauty and the Beast is incredible.
They're both great shows, and I guess maybe if I had seen Beauty and the Beast on a different ship, I would have thought, oh well, I've already been there, done that. But I've seen Beauty and the Beast in the parks, and I feel like the way that they bring it to life on the Treasure was just stunning. The puppetry work was amazing. I'm still trying to puzzle out of my head how they did some of the kind of big reveal moments. So I'm going with Beauty and the Beast.
All right. Like I said, not going to hate on that. All right. Favorite bar space on board the Treasure?
That's a tough one. So I loved that Haunted Mansion Parlor experience, but the drinks were just so sweet, so sweet. Yeah. So I think other than the Concierge Lounge, which was fantastic, we did visit Hook's Barbary and had a really cool old fashioned there. So that was definitely kind of topping the list as well. And I spent a lot of time in the Skipper Lounge because I'm a trivia person. So, and they have some really nice drinks there as well.
They do. All right. Favorite rotational dining?
Ooh, I think the food was probably best for me in 1923. But you don't get the show there. When you combine it with the atmosphere in the show, Coco is really lovely. I'm from Texas, so I'm judgmental about what they were calling Mexican food. I would not call it that, but it was tasty food.
Yeah,
but they could use a heavier hand on some of the spices, I think.
Fair. That's a fair assessment. That could be said across the fleet. All right. Favorite onboard activity?
We loved and did not expect to love, but loved Aquamouse.
Oh, yay.
Aquamouse was so fun. And again, it was one of those things that I was like, as an adult without a kid, is somebody going to give me side eye for getting in the line for this? Absolutely not. It was so much fun. We went, we saw all three different versions that they had on the treasure. They do a different story each day. And there was one time actually that we were able to, there was no one else in line. So they just let us go through a couple times, which is fantastic. So if you, I think that's another benefit of the late dinner, if you're interested, is that during the early dinner seating, Aquamouse is pretty empty. So that's perhaps a nice tip for someone if you're trying to get in one of those stories that you haven't seen yet.
Absolutely. Love it. All right. I got to ask a couple of food questions, a favorite sweet item and a favorite savory item. And you can choose from main dining, but you can also choose from Palo Brunch, which we didn't have even time to talk about. But let's start with the sweets because I love the savories. And so I saved the best for last. What was a favorite sweet item on the cruise?
So this is probably not that special, but one thing that you can get in the Concierge Lounge are gummy bears. And I never mind gummy bears for myself. And so it just felt like a really nice treat to be able to just be a kid again and have as many handfuls of gummy bears as I wanted at any point. So that was great. The Mickey Churro waffles were great too. So those, everyone knows that those are fantastic. But yeah, something about the gummy bears just hit right on this trip.
Listen, bear-shaped food, Mickey-shaped food. Apparently you just like character-shaped food. I like it. All right. A favorite savory item.
I was really impressed with the poolside dining. They had just so many good options. Again, I'm from Texas. I was prepared to think the barbecue was trash, but it wasn't. It was pretty good, actually.
We got
the pulled pork, I think. And at one point, we also took the pulled pork over to the tacos and kind of made tacos out of the pulled pork barbecue.
That is so smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, smart.
So I was really impressed with that. And I thought that was a great way to kind of please a lot of different palates all at the same time.
I'm glad you went for the pulled pork because I think you probably would have been disappointed by the brisket. I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, I think people like the brisket, but I don't know that most Texans would say it's brisket.
Yeah, come to Texas, y'all. We know how to do the brisket.
Yeah, I like it. All right. I am going to ask you my last question of rapid fire, which is the question I ask everyone in whoever does my rapid fire, which is a bucket list cruise. If you could go anywhere on the world and it's on a Disney Cruise Line ship, well, even say you can stay in Concierge, where would you sail, Whitney?
I think that they need to invent an itinerary that hits all of the stops for the Asia parks.
Yes, we've been wanting that too.
Yeah, to go to Shanghai, to go to Tokyo Disney Sea. I just think that would be so cool to be able to combine those two things. And especially with now the Adventure coming out going to be out of Singapore, it looks like for the time being. Maybe that itinerary will come to be eventually, but that's I think what I'd put out there for a bucket list.
Awesome. I love that. I'll be on it with you, Whitney. You'll take me with you. I'll just stow away in your luggage. But yeah, sounds good to me. I've not been to any of the Asian parks, but I would absolutely love to go. Well, Whitney, you've got a Magic cruise scheduled. You've got a Destiny cruise scheduled. Have you got any other cruise lines scheduled, or is it just Disney from now on?
Just Disney. I got the bug. I think I've gotten addicted, as they say that you will, and it's true. But I'm excited to see. So we're obviously taping this earlier than it will air, and we are, I think, just maybe a week or two out from what is hopefully the next drop of dates that Disney will do, as around the time of year that they tend to do them. So going to definitely have my eye on those. I'd like to experience more of the fleet now. And so in addition to the two that I have booked through 2026, I'm definitely going to be, I think, maybe eyeing a trip on the Wonder. So
awesome. Fantastic. Well, Whitney, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun talking about your first time in Disney Cruise Line, first time sailing Concierge in particular, and, getting to understand some of the differences with some of the other cruise lines and what the real benefit is from Disney, which I think you hit the nail on the head. That is service in general. I think think Disney Cruise Line, whether you're sailing Concierge, you're sailing regular, Disney's service is just above and beyond what most of the other cruise lines, perhaps with the one exception you mentioned, Virgin Voyages. So absolutely. But thanks so much for joining me. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks to everyone out there for listening this week. We really, really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can keep getting great content from us every week. In fact, twice a week we publish shows. So be sure to hit the subscribe button to get all of those great episodes. And if you want to watch us live, we have a live show now every week, Monday nights, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern over on youtube.com/DCLDuo. So be sure to head over and check that out. If you want to help support the show, be sure to hit those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you leave us a written review, a 5-star written review, we will read it at the top of one of our main episodes. So please head over there and hit those 5 stars. Of course, you can also help support the show by supporting our fabulous show sponsor, My Path Unwinding Travel. If you want to book your next Disney vacation, head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCLDuo or email them at DCLDuo@mypathunwinding.com so they know we sent you their way. If you've got questions or you'd like to connect with us, the best way to do that is to head over to DCLDuo.com. It's got links to all of our things, full catalog of the podcast episodes, including a searchable catalog for the podcast, links off to our vlog, a link to our Etsy store where we sell some fun fan-inspired magnets, link to our Patreon if you'd like to help directly support the show each and every month. Just head over to the website or patreon.com/DCLDuo. Also has a way for you to sign up for our Substack newsletter that we're hoping to start really pumping out monthly here at least, and a few blog articles that we've written. So DCLDuo.com is the best way to connect with us. You can also, of course, email us at info@DCLDuo.com or reach out to us on our voicemail line at 402-413-5590. That's 402-413-5590. The DCL Duo podcast is not affiliated with Disney Cruise Line, the Disney Company, or the Disney family of theme parks. The views expressed on the show are solely those of the individuals on the podcast and in no way reflect the views of the Disney Company or Disney Cruise Line. If you have questions about a Disney cruise or a Disney vacation, please contact the great folks over at My Path Unwinding Travel or Disney directly or your own travel agent. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for another fabulous adventure with the DCL Duo. Good night.